Hey, I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Mission Matters. My name is Adam Torres, and if you'd like to apply to be a guest in the show, just head on over to missionmatters.com and click on Be Our Guest to apply. All right, so today I have Darrell Crawford on the line. He's managing partner of the Vantage Group. Darrell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Looking forward to talking with you today.
Oh, man, Darrell. So excited to have you on the show today. So first off, fellow Michigander. So I love bringing my Michigan folk on the show, number one. But number two, we have a great topic. So winning the war for talent. A lot of business owners, entrepreneurs, executives watch this show and they're looking for tips and things that they can do to further their businesses and also their careers. So excited to get into this with you today. But just to get us kicked off, we'll start this show like we start them all with our Mission Matters Minute. So, Darrell, we at Mission Matters, we amplify stories for entrepreneurs, executives, and experts. That's our mission. Darrell, what mission matters to you?
Well, thank you, Adam. Our mission is to engage leaders in creating an environment for their people to flourish and therefore own and deliver their part in the strategy of the organization. The result of that is a unified team that has high morale, clarity of purpose, and a focused goal execution. And really what we're talking about today, an organization that attracts top talent as well as raving fan customers. So that's what we're passionate about. That's what we focus our efforts on. If we could sum it up into just a very quick phrase, it's about equipping leaders and unlocking outcomes.
Amazing. Love bringing mission-based entrepreneurs and executives on the line to really share why they do what they do. Like what gets them excited? What gets them motivated? How are they making a difference in the world and in the marketplace? So great having you on. And maybe just to get us started, let's go a little bit further back in your career. So how did you get really on this path to talent and to helping companies do this?
Well, I would say that very early in my career, I was mismanaged. I worked for leaders that weren't very clear about the purpose. They had very arcane ways of managing people. There were lots of issues that I saw and kind of went, there's got to be a better way of doing this. So I went about trying to figure that out and started my own business very, very early in my career and had those opportunities to put those things into practice that I learned a lot about how not to do it. So I had to start coming up with how best to do it. And that's a lot of what the basis of this company is about.
What's early? Give us kind of like a age range, if you will.
I was 28 years old when I started.
Oh, come on. You were a baby, Darrell.
I was a baby.
Oh, man. So I have to ask, there's some other, youngins out there getting started with their businesses that might be in their, mid, early 20s, late 20s. And they're figuring it out. And we all learn from, benefit of hindsight, right? Like the ups and downs, being an entrepreneur is not easy. I'm probably, for people that have been watching this a long time, I'm probably 20 businesses in, and I finally have one that works and matches me, right? Mission matters. So feel very blessed for that. But that being said, what kind of things would you tell, some of the others that are out there on that entrepreneurial journey that maybe aren't quite as far along as you are right now?
Well, we always talk a lot about be very clear about defining what are the pain issues, what are the things that customers need out there. Yeah. And if you could become very clear and focused on that, it really helps. Early stage businesses that are starting up have a lot of challenges. And one of those challenges, they're just chasing anybody that has a check to write to them. Yeah. And so their mission becomes very fuzzy, as they're out there doing that. What we find is when a company gets very focused, and if they can get focused as early as possible and not be as worried as much about chasing money, they actually flourish and do very well, in the marketplace. But that's only if they're addressing the right problems.
Yeah. Man, you make it sound so easy, easier said than done, but it is true. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about like we just went on 5 years. I'm thinking about our first 2 to 3 years. And I'm like, we were chasing and we didn't grow until we kind of defined exactly what you're saying. So anybody that's listening to this, like Darrell knows what he's talking about, number one, but number two, like if you can try to walk that path and I think there's some good outcomes out there.
Yeah, I think a good thing too is get a coach, get an advisor, get a mentor, get somebody that can help guide you along the way who's been down that path. And it'll be very helpful. I had that. I had some some retired CEOs from some major corporations that were part of my advisory board and really helped get me going.
Oh, it's awesome. Mm-hmm. So let's shift gears a bit here. So winning the war on talent. So job market right now, marketplace, very competitive. For context for everybody that's watching this. So we're recording this in December, right before the holidays in 2021, almost the new year. I got to keep that one straight already. I'm sure I'll write the wrong year on the checks for maybe a good month or two. Got to get one return or so. But like there's a lot going. The marketplace has changed. A lot of remote workers, just things are shifting. Like, what are you seeing from your vantage point? Because you're working on this day in and day out.
Yeah, it is a big problem for companies out there, and a lot of our clients approach us saying, we got to be working harder in this area, help us do this, and we really started looking at, okay, what does that mean? If you're going to become an employer of choice, for example. There's a lot of things going on. First thing is you got to identify what's going on in the marketplace, like you just said. And we know that the pandemic, has really fed a lot of the issues going on with employment right now. But, a lot of things that we're seeing is understaffing. 24/7 expectations are no longer there. People don't want to work that anymore. They want to have a life again. In fact, I overheard a conversation just, standing in the grocery store line. Somebody was looking at their friend and basically saying, I used to live to work, but now I work to live. And I have a life again. I have a relationship with my family again. So people are kind of waking up to this new reality of, I don't have to have this life where I'm work all the time.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is people are just kind of, fed up with the lack of employer loyalty. That they've seen occur in their lives, and they want something different. They want more purpose. Dead end career pathways, not having well-defined career paths, are really an issue for people. And I think employers that have those really have a leg up in the recruitment area. And of course, pay. That's always one of those things. A lot of companies are starting to realize we've got to get better alignment. And more competitive on the pay side and the benefit side, and really understanding what are those benefits that people want that are and that lack of work-life harmony and balance. That's the other thing that's really causing people to say, hey, there's got to be more to life than just what I've been doing day in and day out. And people don't want to just come in and just collect a check and go through the motions and have a boring dead-end job. They really want purpose behind that. And that's a lot of what we're doing, is really helping companies work through those issues.
Yeah, I feel it's kind of interesting. It's almost like the world changed, or at least the United States changed a little bit during, Industrial Revolution, right? Our school systems, everything else changed. We ended up being, a certain way. We were trained a certain way. And now finally, I just feel like people are finally waking up to think like, hey, there's some other ways to live. There's some other, in this new gig economy and all these other things that are happening are really just essentially kind of technology is just providing more opportunity for people to kind of revert back to doing what we used to all do when we were farmers, right?
Yes.
What it comes out to.
But, I'm reading a lot about even entrepreneurs and CEOs who realized that what they were putting themselves through was not helpful, and it certainly wasn't helping their family relationships. I read about a CEO that used to commute from Long Island into New York City, get on the train at 6 a.m, go in early, be there till, 7, 8 o'clock at night, get home, tuck the kids in bed and go right back and start doing emails and stuff. Well, when the pandemic hit, they had to work at home. Yeah. And they actually found they were pretty productive because they were doing everything on Zoom. They weren't traveling all over the place. They certainly weren't hopping on a train. And I read this one CEO said, you know what? We're just going to use our offices for sales meetings. I want everybody to work at home. I want everyone to have a relationship with their family. And he loved so much being able to have dinner with his family at the end of the day, which is something he could not do before. So, it's really causing people to rethink, what is this really all about? Why am I doing this to myself?
So this is so we've been kind of tackling the issue from the employee or the job seeker, we'll say, or the worker point of view. So with all this change happening from the employer side of things, like how should an employer be really approaching this new marketplace and job market in terms of like attracting top talent? Because I feel like it's competitive, but I feel like for employers that are very forward thinking, like it's also like they have some may have a competitive advantage there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are. I think a company has to really start doing some self-examination of what's really going on within the organization. First off, you got to understand, what does the marketplace demand and want from you.
Mm-hmm.
But internally, there's probably some things going on that need to be fixed and corrected. Mm-hmm. Such as what's the workforce like in your organization right now? How did it come to be that way? How satisfied are people with their jobs, with their team, with the company overall? Mm-hmm. What are some areas of frustration they may have? Mm-hmm. Does the company have a certain high turnover in areas? Mm-hmm. That really kind of indicates if we got some turnover, maybe in a particular division of the company, we need to be looking at what's going on here. Is this a leadership problem, management problem? What's going on? And then what's the hiring process like? Mm-hmm. I hear so many people complain about the hiring process, not getting any feedback. I sent my resume in and I didn't even get an email to acknowledge that they got it. Or poor follow-up, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks, and then they hear nothing. Those kinds of things in the hiring process doesn't send great signals to people that this is somebody that's an employer of choice. You've got to look at every aspect of what's going on, from the hiring all the way through what's happening in the company. The other thing too is hiring processes are sometimes a little haphazard. They may be geared toward hiring somebody who fits a certain favorite profile they may have about an individual, and find out the person isn't effective at all. How the company is recruiting, where are they recruiting from, are big issues. Are there gaps, in the talent that's needed to accomplish the work in the organization? This is the biggest thing that we hit on as well, and it so fits the name of your organization. Can an employee articulate your organization's mission and vision? Can they verbalize the core values of the organization? When we see that they can't do that, then there is a big disconnect between the purpose of the organization and what the employee is doing. The employer has not made that connection. And so they don't have any meaning behind what they're doing. And so they feel like their work is just a day-to-day drudgery. And it doesn't really align with those stated values the company may have. In fact, they may see a lot of contradictions, based on that. Culture is so important, in an organization to attract people. I mean, we have clients that we've helped go through this process of becoming an employer of choice, who are, smaller companies. Maybe they're like 200 employees or so, but they're competing against multinational global companies for talent, and they're beating them because of their culture. People will say, I want to work at that little company. I like those people. They got their act together. They really are what they say they are. And they aren't just, putting words on a nice little poster, that's hanging up somewhere. That is so important to people. And, everybody's all worried about money and pay and benefits and all this kind of stuff. But employees, even though everybody wants to be paid, they really want to work somewhere where they feel valued in what they're doing, and that they can work with people they like working with that share those same values. It's just so key. And companies got to look at how our employees working together too. Like I just said there, do people not like the people they're working with, or because you often hear stories about people that, maybe things aren't going well in the job, maybe the pay isn't quite where it is, but they will say things like, I don't want to leave because I like my teammates, I like my boss, I will stick it out because I believe so strongly in what they're doing and what we're doing together that I feel like I would let them down if I left this company. That's a strong culture. That says something a lot about the trust, that's been engendered, between teammates and all that. We do a lot of engagement surveys for companies to kind of get a read on what's going on, within an organization. Communication is always an area that people complain about. Well, what's going on? The company isn't really communicating the purpose very clearly. They're not connecting. What do you do, employee, that's helping to move the needle on us getting closer to our goals that we're trying to accomplish as an organization. So, companies can't ignore that. Even though they always say, they're always complaining about communication. Well, there's a reason why. You're holding things back. You're not transparent. And employees need to see that. They really appreciate that.
I want to talk a little bit more about the Vantage Group. Before we get into, I want to go a little bit deeper on some of these things you said, like you take employers through a process of becoming an employer of choice. But before we get into that, tell us more about the Vantage Group just in general. Like, tell us a little bit more about the company and maybe the types of employers that get the most value out of working with you and your team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got quite a range of companies that we work with, from 10,000 employees down to 100 employees typically. Yeah. And a lot of the issues that people come to us are really around leadership and leadership development. And they kind of know there's something going on, but they're not quite sure what it is. And we really help get some clarity around what those issues are that are going on in the company. And then we have some very solid training programs, because a lot of the things that I just shared here earlier, that mindset change has to occur. In order for that to occur, leaders and managers have to learn a new way of dealing with their people in the organization. I often say, we've got to look at what are the roadblocks that are holding people back from performing adequately to reach the goals in the company. And so we really set about looking very seriously at that whole talent management life cycle and saying, we've got to do something different here, because the old ways of doing things aren't working. And in order for a company to be an employer of choice, we help them identify all the steps in their organization and talent life cycle. Where are the gaps, and help them identify what are the things that they've got to do in order to start making that movement to be an employer of choice. We're very successful at that. We've got several clients that have gone through this process, and I can honestly say they don't go out and look for talent. They get resumes all the time, even in this current working environment. I've got clients that have stacks of resumes, and they can pick and choose, what's going to be the best fit for them based on they have such a great reputation in the marketplace for what they do. I got one client that is in the tree business. Okay, they cut down trees, real simple thing that they do. But the CEO really set about on being very clear on their purpose and making those connections to everyone in the organization. They too don't go out and look for people. You're talking about people coming out of high school, coming in with a chainsaw to go cut down trees. They have one of the highest safety records of anyone in the industry, because it's a very dangerous business. But yet they're attracting people through this process that we've helped them work on. They have career paths defined from starting level all the way up through foreman and other various levels within the company. And these young people come in and they go, there's a career path here. There's something I can do to actually get, through various things, and it's all defined. They got certifications listed. They got different training that they have to do. And if you're going to go into leadership roles, what do those trainings look like? And they go through really clear definitions. It's so powerful. Companies don't realize how powerful that can be to somebody who's considering working for them.
I think that talent life cycle thing should not be overlooked. So as we're talking about this, I don't want to assume that everybody's considered this, especially, depending on the size of the business and where they're at. If they haven't really worked with a company like yours, or, if they don't have somebody forward thinking in their operations, then they may not be kind of evaluating this quite as much. Normally, or for many, it's, well, we hired somebody, they quit, right? Like that's the cycle of, or there are some other things in between. Hired, trained, they left. Like, what does that look like? How long were they with us? Give us a little bit more kind of a peek under the hood. You're from Michigan. I'm from Michigan. Give us under the hood what it looks like a little bit in your process, and kind of what differentiates your thought process around the talent life cycle, and maybe possibly what some other employers are currently doing and could benefit from changing.
Well, a lot of the things that we do is really are helping companies get a very objective view of not only the talent that they have within their organization, but what do they need? as far as various roles within the company. And what we help them do is create benchmarks for all their key roles. And the benchmarks are all around things like, what behaviors are needed on the job, what kind of motivators, do we need to attract as far as what motivates a person to do this particular role. Yeah. And we identify what are the competencies that are needed to do a role, what kind of acumen or leadership or decision-making skills that they need to have. We want to make sure that we have those things defined and really forcing, subject matter experts, management teams, whatever we call those, to really think about what are we really holding this role accountable for? Because everybody always says, well, we have a job description. No, the job description tells you very little. It's usually a whole list of things that you kind of go, I don't even understand half the stuff you just listed in here. Is it because HR, is trying to cover a legal thing, or something? But when we say things like, no, I want to know 5 key things this role is going to be held accountable for. And they just kind of go, I hadn't really thought about that. Okay, so then we've got to start. This is where the process of changing the thinking starts, is getting the benchmark the job. So now we have a data set. We have a data set of benchmark data that an employer can use to either compare that to people who have been assessed internally within the organization that maybe they're considering for promotion, or for people coming from outside the organization. We can assess some candidates and then do gap reports against that and kind of see, okay, well, how close are we aligned with that? Companies that use this process and they have people really closely aligned for what the role needs find retention rates almost double.
Wow.
So, and that's
significant.
It's a huge money saver because it costs a lot to recruit people, and nobody wants to lose anybody. That's because oftentimes we had called for that too. Well, we're doing pretty good actually at recruiting people. And I go, are you? Okay, well, what's happening on the back door? Are they sticking around? Well, no, our retention rate is not very good. We're starting to fall behind a little bit, even though we got people coming in. We're starting to lose more on this backside. All right. Well, there's a lot of misalignment at times with the people and the role. So that's the first part. Around the whole talent, we can actually have dashboards where employers can compare either candidates or internal people against a role and see how, just at a really quick snapshot level, how closely aligned are they to the benchmark. And that's been a very powerful tool. People just kind of go, oh, I wish I would have had this, 10 years ago or whatever, when I was first going into recruiting or whatever role they're in, because it's just transformative, for an organization to be able to have that kind of data to look at. The other thing that the objective data does, it eliminates a lot of bias. And everybody's concerned about diversity. Yeah. And one of the things that we found is some companies who thought they were diverse found out they weren't. There were still biases coming into play. And, certain ethnic groups ended up being in operations. Well, white people had sales jobs and executive roles, and they thought they were diverse because they had this, very, very broadly, racially diverse organization, but yet they still were biased in where they put them within the company. When they started looking at that kind of data, they realized we have been missing people, bypassing people because we've allowed this bias to come into play. And now they're looking at hard data and realizing they have people that are actually a better match. They have bypassed simply because of that bias. So that's been a very powerful tool as well in dealing with any of the bias and diversity issues these are tackling these days.
You've also mentioned the idea of surveying employees and taking these surveys, and you do a lot of that for companies you mentioned. Tell us a little bit about the importance of that for companies that haven't maybe gone through that type of process, and maybe some of the types of outcomes that a company that goes through that process could expect. And I just mean in terms of what kind of new data or information they would get out of it.
Well, and a lot of times it's not a matter of that they're getting new data. They may even have some suspicions, that they're having problems in particular areas, because some of those surveys can be brutal in the feedback that they're getting. But the thing that we find is they may have been doing surveys all along. They just haven't done anything with it. And that really frustrates and angers employees. It's like, why are we doing the survey again? You asked for this last year. You did nothing with the information.
Yeah.
And so the thing that we go in with is we say, okay, you got your data here. I want you to work on these 5 things based on this feedback. And you have to make a presentation to the employees that these are the 5 things we've identified that are top priorities for us to address. This is how we're going to address them. Mm-hmm. These are our goals to address that. Because if they don't do that, it's a waste of time, and they're going to end up just frustrating people, and their culture is going to erode, and a whole variety of things. So that's the paradigm shift, again, that we look at. Mm-hmm. Talk about changing your paradigm set about how you manage talent. Now we also have to look at how are you dealing with the information and feedback. Mm-hmm. Because if you're not doing anything with it, it's a waste of time.
In terms of industries, the Vantage Group, are you industry agnostic, or do you specialize in one industry versus another?
No, we're in medical, we're in software, we're in a lot of different manufacturing types of businesses, retail dealers, those types of things. Yeah, we're talent issues are the same. They really are. And it's just, there's different needs, as far as what type of talent are needed in different roles, but the issues are the same. And what companies find that go through this and they start really empowering their leaders and managers to do better as far as this process of managing that talent life cycle. Mm-hmm. The executive management may have, prior to this process, been spending over 60% of their time dealing with people problems.
Wow.
They got better things to do. They got to be working on the vision. They got to be working on setting goals and doing those types of things. Mm-hmm. When they actually start going through this process and empowering more people to take on more of those leadership type roles, those problems that they were constantly dealing with before are starting to go away, because people aren't sitting there complaining about things all the time. What's happening is they're going, oh, you're very interested in what I have to say and how we can solve these problems. That's great. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times we've seen, like, for example, manufacturing. Manufacturing is always looking for continuous improvement, ways to improve productivity and all that kind of thing. And what the old ways of doing it is to do like a cascade down approach. It flows in one direction. We're going to do these initiatives. We're going to do these things to solve this problem. And they find out too late that it really didn't solve any problems. It just made people frustrated. And you got people on the front lines of these companies going, if they have a problem to solve, why didn't they ask us? We deal with this every day.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of solutions for this. Just ask us.
I get it.
Yeah. So when they start doing that, it changes. It changes the time that they're spending doing things and all that. So it's very powerful.
It's amazing. Well, we're heading into 2022 as we're recording this today, or we're live today. I just have to ask, Joe. So first off, it's been great having you on the show. What's next? I mean, what's next for you? What's next for the Vantage Group?
Well, I think what's next is we're really ramping up a lot of our management training programs. And we have a program that's called the Prioritized Leader. And so much of what that is about, of course, is there's 5 P's to it. There's purpose, there's people, there's the pace of the organization, there's the perception, getting the feedback, and then profit. They actually need to be done in that order of priority. Companies tend to flip those things, though. They focus on profit and to the expense of the people. Or they're focusing on pace, and they're working at a pace that may be causing burnout within an organization. So we get leaders, again, to start with purpose. Doesn't matter if they're managing a little team of people or managing a whole company. They got to be really clear on what's the purpose for these people. What are the goals we're trying to get done that's going to fulfill the greater goals of what the organization is doing? And then start working with their people to engage them, to empower them, to encourage them, all those things that need to be done from people. They need to be very people-centric, because it takes people to get things done. They're not machines. They're not tools. They're people with feelings and emotions, and they care about a whole variety of things. And we have to be cognizant of that, as we're working with them. Pace right now is a big problem, throughout all industries. We see it, we hear about it in the hospitals, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's burned out. Companies have to be more effective at dealing with pace issues, and certainly getting feedback and that perception, very key. But profit requires a company to be more transparent, because if I'm an employee that you're telling me to help move the needle on the goals, then what are they? I want to see the numbers. I want to know what kind of impact I'm having here.
Yeah.
It's really helpful. So that's what we're training leaders to do. And we're finding we got companies that are just signing up left and right, wanting to do this program with us, and all over the country. I mean,
that's awesome.
We're just hopping on planes and flying all over the place to do these programs. So we're pretty excited about it.
Oh man, that is exciting. And I can't wait to hear more and to watch that grow. And just be more and more of value to your clients, to companies out there. And just circling back to the overall topic, really, and when it comes to winning the war on talent, all these things add up. So a lot of things that I've learned in this interview, things like how important culture is, the life cycle for employees, surveying, like getting feedback, confirming some things you already knew, or getting a further view, bird's eye view of the data that you kind of maybe had, but now how do you implement that? How do you make that a change? So it's been a great interview and great having you on the show, Darrell. If somebody is watching this and they want more information on the Vantage Group or how to connect with you and your team, what's the best way for people to do that?
Well, the best way, I think, to start with is go to our website. It's vantagegroupinc.com. Or you could email us at info@vantagegroupinc.com. And we'd be more than happy to talk with anybody about that. We have a lot of information on our website, a lot of free tools, a lot of things that people can go look at about all the work that we're doing out there. And we've got testimonials on almost every page from clients that are effectively implementing the things that we're working with them on.
Fantastic. And we'll put all that in the show notes, by the way, for our audience, so that they can just head right on over, click on it, head right over to the website and connect with you and your team. And speaking of the audience, if this is your first time with us at Mission Matters, we're all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts, and really having them share their mission with our audience. Our goal here is to be both inspirational, educational, and really forward-thinking. Like, what are entrepreneurs doing now and going into the future? If that's your type of content and something that you're into, don't forget, hit that subscribe button, because we have many, many more mission-based entrepreneurs and executives coming up, and we don't want you to miss a thing. And Darrell, really, it has been a pleasure. Thanks for making time for this interview as we head into the new year, and wishing you much more continued success.
Thank you very much, Adam, for having me. I really appreciate it.